what are the challenges that are holding us back from achieving true sustainable transformation? I have to admit that there were many moments when I felt very overwhelmed by the complexity and the urgency of sustainable transformation. I very often felt like there were just so many more questions than answers. When writing an essay on climate change in high school, when teaching sustainability as a PhD, or recently when researching the impacts of the food system in a project at work. And now, after a day of dealing with all of that, and this might sound silly, I would have no problem starting to cry over the evening news that just kept piling on the mountain of problems and questions at hand. Now, don't worry, my partner knows how to handle that. And also, I've got much better. In fact, you could even say that today I am an optimist. And a few things have helped me along the way. One thing was to give structure to the problems that I saw, to help me know where to start. And the other thing was for me to decide to focus on what we can solve rather than getting stuck on the problems and get back at least a sense of agency. And so today, I want to share 3 learnings from that journey with you. First, sustainable transformation, it can be hard. And I will talk about 3 reasons why. Second, the more uplifting note, sustainable transformation is doable. There are a lot of great approaches, and many companies are starting that journey. And then third, all of us, as a society, we need to learn how to have more constructive conversations around sustainability to help enable that change. Now, let me jump right in with challenge number 1. Sustainability is very broad. It is not just about carbon, which is a strong focus today, and rightfully so, given its many implications. At the same time, however, there's a lot more planetary boundaries that we have to consider, like freshwater use, like land system change, as we can see from some of the numbers behind me. And then, to make this even more complicated, we also have to take into account social issues, things like child labor, working conditions, and many more. Now, what to do with that long list of things? What you want to do is you want to select and prioritize a few issues that are relevant to you, your industry, or your business. And that can look very different for everyone. Now, if you're a food delivery company in Berlin, for example, you might realize that the things you need to take care of are packaging and working conditions. And then you still have a very long way to go from there. But at least then it becomes much easier for you to derive a very concrete ambition and very concrete next steps, rather than having to think about sustainability as this very big and blurry giant that it can be. Challenge number 2. Now, each issue that you will pick to tackle, it will require very deep expertise. So far, companies very often have the business side expertise of things, like business model design, customer engagement, and that's important. But getting to the root of a sustainability problem and then either finding or maybe even innovating and designing a solution, that will require very different types of expertise. And that can range from biology and chemistry to ecosystems and agriculture to technology and IT and beyond. Now, an approach to this challenge is for you to find and partner with the right experts. You want to do that to source the required knowledge, but also to make sure that you find out about the many great and innovative solutions that are already out there as well. And now, in fact, I reckon that Berlin, where we are today, it's a great place to start looking for such partnerships with its many academic institutions and its innovative startups. And so that brings me to challenge number 3. Let's say you know which issues you need to tackle. You found really great experts to work with. Still, the journey towards sustainability, it will require a lot of trade-offs. Now, there's trade-offs between environmental issues. So in food production, for example, you want to think about greenhouse gas emissions versus soil health versus water use along the value chain. And then there's also going to be trade-offs between environmental and social issues. And the famous example here are electric cars, where we have debates around carbon savings versus also having to think about the working conditions in cobalt and lithium mining. And again, to make it a bit more complex, there's also going to be trade-offs between different regions of the world. And this is where the really tough questions around social justice, they will come in. For example, how fair is it for a person in Germany to offset their vacation flight by buying land in a country where that might have been used for local development instead? Now, something you can do here, and what you want to do is you want to quantify your impact. This will help you to understand your overall footprint, and it will give you a basis to help make those really tough decisions. Now, you can measure things like CO2, of course, or social issues like occupational incidents. But maybe you want to even go one step further and try to monetize those impacts. And this way you can calculate what we call the hidden costs of your products and services. And now I acknowledge it can be very hard to put a dollar value on certain things, like human health or just the sheer beauty and power of nature, right? But still, there are great standardized approaches that you can use. For example, to value land and its ecosystem services. And many companies are starting to use them. And the great thing is, if you start to use that, this will help you to tune in and to speak the language of current institutional norms and leaders, which very often just remains to be numbers and money. Now, from a personal or consumer perspective, I also would actually very often wish for a more quantified approach. I think that that could help a lot in avoiding, let's call it uninformed finger pointing on things that the media has just deemed as unsustainable. What really are the trade-offs between a meat and a non-meat diet? And how bad is online shopping really? And I'm sorry, but the answer very often is it depends. And so this brings me to my last point of today. We need to learn how to have more constructive conversations around sustainability. Very often, the topic is filled with a sense of blame. And I can speak from personal experience here. Just the sheer mentioning of me saying that I'm working in that space, a comment that I've very often heard is, well, you really shouldn't be driving a car then. And I get it. And we need to uncover greenwashing in all of its forms. And we need to challenge one another with very uncomfortable questions and very uncomfortable truths. But it's all a matter of how. So what does that mean for you? The next time that you feel like blaming a person or an institution, I just want to encourage you to start by being curious first. Ask questions. Ask questions like, how do you think about and take care of your personal footprint? How does your company plan to achieve its very ambitious climate goals? And if you're not satisfied with the answer, you can still engage in a conversation. And now lastly, most importantly, something that I learned step by step in my journey towards becoming an optimist, it's the following. We need to learn how to acknowledge ambivalence. Many people speak in either-or language, and it helps to make things easier because we can label a company as either sustainable or not. But with sustainability, we've just seen that things are a bit messy, a bit complex. And so we need to learn how to be able to hold both the positive progress and the need for improvement, both at the same time. Because change rarely starts from a sense of blame or feeling inadequate, but rather, change comes from a place of perceived agency and of hope. Thank you.